Hey everybody, welcome back to LCD 956 Fishing HQ. Mark Villareal, your host for today. Thank you all once again for tuning in with us here on Spotify and YouTube. We're going to continue our episode number 3. This is season 1, episode 3, to finish off the story of how I started gar fishing. On my first episode, I started talking about how my journey started on gar fishing, you know, the great people that I met, the spots that I ended up finding and fishing and all that good stuff, right? So saddle up, sit back and enjoy the show because it's gonna be good today, everyone. So on my last episode, I remember I finished talking about how I met up with some great people, some good friends, and it was an awesome fishing experience, meeting these new fishermen that had the same passion, that shared the same passion as myself. I was talking about how I fished a lot with Keith Gonzalez. He was a great fishing partner of mine, and I mentioned him a lot because me and him fished quite a bit, and it was awesome, the adventures that we had, all because, you know, we didn't have much money to go on these fishing trips in the canals. And I remember as I started off my gar fishing journey with Keith, you know, we would be fishing 3, 4, 5 times out of the week. We'd be catching alligator gars, posting them on social media. And we didn't have money all the time for fishing trips. So at times I had a couple of bucks, at times Keith had a couple of bucks. Regardless, you know, if I didn't have money, Keith had my back. If Keith didn't have money, I had his back. And it was awesome. We used to stop at Stripes before our fishing day, and we used to get some burritos and a gallon of water, and we'd be sharing a gallon of water and eating some of those Stripes burritos. For those of y'all that don't know what Stripes burritos are, it's the easiest and cheapest convenient food that you can purchase. And it was amazing. It was very humbling. It was amazing, and it's like when I said in my very first episode, you know, those are the best times. When you're fishing, having a great time, and you don't have much and you're making it happen. So big shout out to Keith Gonzalez, and how I mentioned in my last post, you know, in my last episode, I'm sorry, how eventually he moved on, I moved on, and we started doing our own thing. But throughout my fishing journey, I fish with great people that I like to give a big and special shout out. I know that a lot of other people that I fish with, that I met through Keith, and I want to mention them because they were awesome, and they are awesome. They're good friends of mine. So throughout my journey, I fished with Hank Rodriguez. A big shout out to Hank. You know, he's another great fisherman. He fished with us as well. Robert Reyes, how can I forget Robert Reyes, Team John Rambo. Much love to my buddy Robert Reyes. He's always had Los Canaleros del 956 back. He sponsored our events. He's been there. He's been a great customer of mine. And we have great history, Robert and I. And a big shout out to you, brother. And much love to Robert Reyes, Team John Rambo. I'm still here. I'm not going anywhere. You already know it, brother. And a big shout out to my friend Manuel Ortiz. He's like my brother. His family is like my family. Manuel Ortiz, he and I fished a lot. Even before gar fishing, Manny and I would go saltwater fishing, and he loves to fish a lot. And he's out there in Houston, Texas right now. So big shout out to Manuel Ortiz, his brother Javi Ortiz, their mom Lucia Ortiz. You know, they're like my second family, and we enjoyed fishing a lot. And their little brother Tony Baloney, a big shout out to Tony Baloney out there. And all these wonderful people that I got to fish with, and I just thought I would give them a shout out. So throughout my journey, Los Canaleros del 956 kept on growing, and we were getting new administrators. Some administrators, you know, were no longer with us, but throughout the journey there was new administrators like Mr. Joe Rodriguez. A big shout out to Joe Rodriguez, another person that I've had the pleasure of fishing with and I've had the pleasure of having on my team. And a big shout out to you, brother, Mr. Joe Rodriguez. Felix Covarrubias, I think it's proper to mention Mr. Felix Covarrubias. I remember when I started fishing, gar fishing, Felix had started a little while after, and he wanted to learn and he wanted to fish and catch alligator gars just like we were. And he became a freaking amazing fisherman gar fishing. And those of y'all that know Felix Covarrubias, you know what I'm talking about. This guy is a hardcore alligator gar fisherman. one of the best in my books, just like all the other guys I've mentioned, and he became one of my administrators, and he supported the page, the group, Los Canaleros 956, and he's an amazing fisherman. So big shout out to Mr. Felix Covarrubias as well. And if I didn't mention anybody else, I do apologize. There's a lot of people out there that I wish I could mention. Hopefully I can remember in my future podcast and stuff like that. So, you know, I wanted to start this episode with some shout outs, and you know, I remember these great memories with everybody. And thanks to you all, thanks to everyone for being part of Los Canaleros del 956, LCD 956. So, as I fished, as I started gar fishing, like I said, you know, I got these cool spots. I met these wonderful people. We had administrators coming in, being part of the group. A lot of great, wonderful members. In this time, I started my YouTube channel. I started my YouTube channel in Los Canaleros del 956. I started doing these low budget videos, and it's funny because I call it low budget because I was filming with my cell phone. You know, back then we didn't have these cool iPhone 12s, 13s and whatnot, right? 14s. You know, we had some Androids, and we'd be filming, and I decided, you know, hey, I'm already filming videos, posting them on Facebook, so why not start a YouTube channel? And I started Los Canaleros del 956, and it was freaking amazing, you know, putting videos out there on Facebook, on YouTube. They weren't the best videos in the world. You can go back right now and you'll see my oldest videos on YouTube, and you know exactly what I'm talking about when I'm saying low budget films and editing. I used to film with my phone. I used to edit with my phone on these free apps, and big shout out to Rick Diaz once again, because he's the one that encouraged me on doing stuff like that, on filming and getting comfortable being in front of the camera. You know, Rick Diaz encouraged me to do it because at the time he was actually the first one that would do it for me. He was filming for me, and he was posting on Facebook for me at times when I wasn't. And Rick Diaz had experience in that field, and he encouraged me a lot to get comfortable with myself and be able to film myself and talk and become a better person on camera. So a big shout out to Rick Diaz. And so we started the YouTube channel Los Canaleros 956, and it grew little by little. It grew. It wasn't the biggest channel in YouTube, but it was growing, and all my old videos are there. And the good thing about it is you can go back right now, type in Los Canaleros del 956 on YouTube, and you can go back and see my old videos, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. So yeah, if y'all haven't checked it out, go check it out, subscribe, hit the like, and hit the little bell so you can be up to date, because all of our upcoming videos that we have now, they're freaking amazing. It's modernized. I've learned a lot. I got a new team with me, and it's freaking amazing. You know, you will see what I'm talking about, and I will talk more about it in my future podcasts and all of that. So yes, so from fishing, learning how to gar fish, getting these great spots, fishing with great fishermen, we started YouTube. After that, after I started my YouTube channel, I bought an aluminum boat from my friend Hector Soto. A big shout out to Hector Soto. That's Homer's brother, or should I say Hector Elizondo? I'm sorry. I always forget their last name, but a big shout out to Hector Elizondo. That's Homer Elizondo's brother. You know, I talked about Homer in my past episode, and Hector had this very nice John boat. I believe it was a 14-foot John boat. Again, don't take my word for it, but it was a 14-foot John boat. He had it decked out. He had a nice cubby in the front. You know, he had all the lights on there. It was water ready, a 9.9 horsepower Mercury motor, mint condition aluminum John boat. I fell in love as soon as it was on the market. It wasn't even on the market, as a matter of fact. For some reason, he sold it to me, and he probably knew how much I was going to use it and put it to use and cherish it. So he decided to sell me his John boat, and he loved that John boat a lot. He had it decked out, very nice, taking care of it. It was awesome. It had everything. So yeah, I bought this John boat from Hector Elizondo, and I decided to do more gar fishing in areas where I couldn't get on land, where I can access through the water. And oh man, did I discover more spots. I discovered more spots, and we did great videos on that John boat. I started I remember I started guiding off of that little John boat. It was a humble John boat, and I say humble because it's amazing what I did with it. I caught tons and tons of gar. I took people fishing on it. It had stories, and you can see those videos on YouTube where I had that John boat, and you're gonna see I even took it to the saltwater, and I've been to the South Padre Island jetties on it, and stuff like that. So yeah, I bought the John boat, and I started doing gar fishing trips and stuff like that. At that time, I remember there was a local tackle shop here in the Rio Grande Valley, and I would buy my gear from them. I'd buy my leader making material because I was making leaders at the time, and I was making my own leaders. So this store had the gar fishing essentials. They had bait, they had the wire, the crimps, the swivels, the hooks, everything you needed to make your own leaders. And it was a locally owned tackle shop, or should I say a tackle store. And one day I walked in there and I told the owner, I'm like, hey man, would you consider sponsoring me? And I'll be shouting out your store and everything on my videos and repping your tackle store. And immediately he agreed and said yes. So that was my first actual sponsorship in my gar fishing journey, from many that I got throughout my gar fishing journey, right? So I had a $25 weekly allowance with them. Every week I can go and get $25 worth of stuff, and here I was fishing off the John boat, making more videos on YouTube, on Facebook, and shouting out this tackle store. And I remember at that time I was still fishing with Rick Diaz, as a matter of fact, because after I fished with Keith, even Keith and I would fish a lot, but after a while, I guess me and Rick Diaz started fishing. Just like I mentioned in my last episode, we fished a lot together. So yeah, it was my first sponsor, and I was excited. Not too many people can say that they had a sponsorship, fishing the canals out here, and it was awesome. At that time, I was making my own leaders, and I did not mention this in my last episode, but I learned how to make gar leaders through Juan Chapa, and I gotta give credit where credit is due, man. I remember the first time I ever saw somebody make an alligator gar leader, it was Juan Chapa, and that's all it took. It just took one time for me to see him make them, and that was in my past episode that I was talking about when me and Juan Chapa were fishing out there in Santa Monica and all that. I saw him making alligator gar leaders. So immediately I learned just by looking at him, and I made my own gar leaders after that. And I wasn't buying pre-made leaders anymore from Academy and Walmart and stuff like that. Now I was making my own leaders, because there was no better feeling in the world than being able to make your own leader, catch your own bait your own leader, cast and catch using your own made leader. There was no better feeling in the world. And for myself, I always liked the challenge. I always liked to do everything myself. So big shout out to Juan Chapa once again. He's the one that I learned how to make leaders. So at that time, like I mentioned, I was sponsored. I was out there fishing on the John boat. Me and Rick Diaz were still out there putting action on the page, on the group, Los Canaleros del 956. And in that time, I had gotten another sponsorship for leaders, because and I'm mentioning the leaders because the leaders became a big part of Los Canaleros del 956. And at that time, I was getting sponsored some leaders from the tackle store. Was giving me a couple of leaders. The ones that were sponsoring me, they were giving me a couple of leaders here and there. They were okay, and then after a while, I got another sponsorship from somebody that started making leaders also here in the Rio Grande Valley. And he wasn't much of a gar fisherman like I was, but I wanted to help him out in the way that, he was making leaders, he was selling leaders out there. So I was like, you know what, I'll go ahead and get your sponsorship. He offered me a sponsorship on the leaders. I'm like, I'll go ahead and accept it, and I'll use your leaders and all that stuff. I used them for a while until there was kind of a problem with that. And I'm not going to get into it because I want to keep this positive, right? So there was a dilemma with that, and eventually I'm like, you know what? I've been gar fishing a lot longer than these guys, and I've been making leaders, and I have my own style of making my own leaders. Why not me start manufacturing leaders and selling them? And at that time, my vision was, you know what? I want to make leaders, and I want to sell them to stores. I don't want to just sell them independently to the consumer. I want to make in bulk. I want to sell to stores. I want to have them all over, and I want people to be able to walk into their nearest tackle store and buy my alligator gar leaders. So that's exactly what I did. You know, that was the next chapter. I started manufacturing alligator gar leaders, and I was selling them. I was selling them very good, and people knew me in the community that I was a big time gar fisherman, so they trusted the product. They wanted the product. They wanted my gar leaders, and I remember there was another tackle store in Westlaco, Texas, and they were my first customers in buying alligator gar leaders. At that time, my sponsorship from the tackle store that I mentioned prior to this, they had closed down. So I went to Westlaco. I offered my leaders. Immediately they just said, yes, we want them in the store. They were my first store that ever had them. I forgot the name of that store in Westlaco, and that's where I first had my gar leaders. It was the best feeling in the world, because I was like, wow, I'm making gar leaders. I got a product. Now I have it in a store. And after that, I got another store out there in Westlaco, not in Westlaco, in Far, Texas, Joe's Tackle Shop. A lot of people, old school people here in the Valley, they know who I'm talking about. Joe's Tackle Shop. He was my second my second retailer that bought wholesale for me for gar leaders. So now I had them in Westlaco. Now I had them in Far. Eventually, I got my leaders into hook, line, and sinker in Harlingen, and these leaders were flying. They were flying off the shelves. So the page was growing. I was putting videos left and right. I was doing guides. I was manufacturing gar leaders at the time. I was still selling decals, caps, shirts, and that's what I was doing at that time. But it still wasn't cutting it for me, you know. Life was getting expensive, and I needed to figure out a way to get more income and get a better job. So I decided to go to the scaffolds in the oil industry, and I was working there for a while, and I was still making gar leaders while I was out there in the scaffolds. I remember in the hotels, you know, staying in the hotels and stuff, I was there crimping leaders and getting them ready, so when I go back down to the valley, to my hometown, you know, to distribute them and all that, and have leaders ready for everybody as soon as I would go back to town on my days off. So that didn't stop, but I did start working up north, and I kind of left my fishing career to try to make a better living for myself and my family. So that's what I did around that time. So I kind of put my fishing career on hold, but I did not stop it. I just put it on hold. I slowed it down, and as I worked in the oil fields after the scaffolds, I worked in the oil fields, and I went through a real bad injury there. You know, I got stuck in between some machineries in the oil fields, and it was the most awful thing that ever happened to me in the world, because it was something that I thought I wasn't gonna make it out of. I remember I got stuck in between some machinery in the oil field, and I was getting rotated around these machinery, and thankfully the supervisor stopped it, and when the machinery stopped spinning, I fell to the ground, and I thought I was, you know, I thought something happened to me, and I see my foot was dangling. I had a broken ankle, and it was pretty bad. But when I saw that it was just my ankle, I thanked God that was it. I was like, thank you, Jesus, that it was just my ankle. It could have been worse. I could have been torn in half. I could have, you know, broke my neck, my spine. It could have been way worse. And I thanked God for that it was just my broken ankle. So after that, I had to go home. I got operated. I had to be in recovery for several months at home, and I had to think what I was going to do with my life after that. So after I fully recovered, I wasn't really fully recovered, but after I kind of recovered from that injury, I decided to pursue my fishing career. I was like, you know what? I'm going to give it 100%. I'd rather make a little bit of money here at home, come back to my family, rather than risking my life working somewhere and who knows, not being able to come back home to my family. So that's what I did. I pursued my fishing career. So what did I do after that? After I recovered that injury, I decided to open LCD 956 Bait and Tackle Shop. And I opened LCD 956 Bait and Tackle Shop right behind my mom's house. I remember we had a shed behind my mom's house, and I had remodeled the shed. I made it bigger. I had, I had rooms, it had showers, it had everything. That's where I was staying for a while until I had moved out. So at the time, that shed was vacant. There was nothing. I wasn't living there no more. That shed was vacant. I call it a shed, but it was actually a small house. It's a small house now, right? That small house behind my mom's home was vacant, so I had the space, and I opened up LCD 956 Bait and Tackle behind my mom's house. And it's a fun story because I told everybody that's how my store started. I started with scrap, I didn't start with the biggest store. I didn't start with the biggest handout. I started with scrap. I had a little bit of money in my savings, and I already had all my leaders going at the time. I was catching bait. I remember I had my bait dealer license, so I was catching bait at the time. I was selling bait. I even had my alligator gar meat license where I can sell alligator gar meat. Remember, everybody knew me for gar fishing. So now Mark Villareal sells alligator gar. He sells bait to catch alligator gar. He sells leaders. That's how I started the store behind my mom's house, selling my leaders, selling the alligator gar, selling my decals, my caps, the Los Canaleros del 956 merchandise. And that's how it started. It started just like that. And that store had so much potential that I saw in it, that I had customers actually coming in and buying stuff from me. At that time, there was only one little store in McAllen, Texas, but they didn't have the gear for gar fishing. They had saltwater gear, but nobody had alligator gar fishing gear. Yeah, some of the stores had my leaders, but they didn't sell the bait, they didn't sell the rods, they didn't sell the reels, and I did. So eventually, this little store that I had created behind my mom's house became LCD 956 Bait and Tackle Shop. And I remember when I was distributing some of my leaders in South Padre Island at Quick Stop, because I was also not only was I making gar leaders, I was making shark leaders, I was making redfish leaders, and I had gotten more stores as my journey continued. So one of the times I went to go leave some leaders in South Padre Island at Quick Stop, or at Port Isabel at Quick Stop. I was leaving some leaders, and my buddy, the manager there, is like, Mark, you see that guy over there? I'm like, yeah, I see him. He's like, you need to go talk to him because he's one of the distributors for fishing gear here in the Rio Grande Valley. He distributes fishing gear, like, he'll get you anything you need. Maybe he can help you for your little store. I'm like, you know what? Let me go talk to him. And I met the guy, a great friend to this day. A big shout out to him. One of the distributors for fishing tackle here in the valley. And I met up with him and I told him my story, what I was doing. And I told him, you know what? I have a house that I'm selling fishing tackle, and I would like to purchase rods and reels and be able to expand and offer those things to my customers. He's like, sure, you know what, Mark, I'll go and I'll check out your house over there, and then we'll go from there. And he did. He went a couple days. He went and he saw the place. He liked it, all that stuff. And we agreed to open up an account for LCD 956 Bait and Tackle. We agreed to open up this account, and something happened right after. I was too excited that I went and I talked to another establishment, another tackle store here in the valley. I went and I told them what happened. I'm like, man, I'm so happy. I just met this guy. He's gonna be able to provide me with fishing tackle, rods and reels, and I'll be able to sell fishing tackle. Well, that was a mistake what I did. I shouldn't have said anything, but I was too excited. So a couple days passed. I didn't hear from this distributor, and he never came back. And I called, and he says, I called and I told him what's going on, and are we gonna open up the account? You agreed that you were gonna open it up within the next couple of days. He's like, Mark, I'm sorry, but corporate got a call from one of the stores, and they complained that why should we open up an account to you if you don't have a a actual store, a storefront. You know, it's not fair that they have a storefront and you have you're selling out of a house, and the company doesn't want to open up your account because unfortunately this other establishment complained about you. And right away I felt a pretty big hit. You know, I got discouraged. I felt a pretty big hit, and it was unfortunate, you know, what I was experiencing. But it's not the first time I've experienced something like this, and not with fishing, but just with life in general. So I'm like, okay, whatever. The only thing I can do now is move forward, right? So I was still selling, you know, my little tackle stuff out of the house and this and that. And eventually I decided to open up my storefront. And I remember I was talking to my spouse about it, and I told her, I'm like, you know what, I want to open up my store. And I'm going to go get a loan, because at the time I had some credit. The bank was able to lend me a couple $1,000s. And I was like, you know what, I'm going to go to the bank and I'm going to ask for a loan, and I'm going to open up my establishment. I just found a great location. You know, I can start getting this distributor, start selling out of there, and I can do that. And my spouse told me, Mark, don't go to the bank, don't get a loan. I will lend you $5,000, and you can just pay me whenever you can. And I did. I got the $5,000 when I didn't really want to, because I didn't want to fail. I didn't want to fail. I didn't want to be stuck in a bind where I couldn't pay back my spouse the $5,000 that she earned, you know, that she hard earned through her work. So it was a very emotional time for me, because, like I said, I didn't want to fail. I didn't want to not be able to succeed. And here I'm taking money that maybe I won't be able to pay back. So it was very emotional for me. And at that time I wasn't sure if I wanted to. But a little part of me told me, you know what, Mark, you must. You have to. There's no other way. There's no other way. You have to, because this is what you are meant to do. And I did. I opened up my first little storefront. It was a small store, but it was a storefront. It was an establishment. LCD 956 bait and tackle storefront, already opened. And boom, it opened up. I redid my account with a distributor. I started getting merchandise, and that little store did wonders. It sold. It brought people in. Customers would come in, and it was awesome. It was amazing. I got to pay my spouse back within months. I got to pay her back, and the store just grew. The merchandise, I was just reinvesting, and buying more and more merchandise and putting it and packing it in this little store. You know, I had my employee there. I remember Raul Reyes. A big shout out to Raul Reyes. He's the one that started the store with me. He gave me tips on how to open up my merchant services. You know, gave me a little tips on about business, owning and all that stuff. And he helped me fix and repair reels. And big shout out to Raul Reyes for having my back at that time. Eventually, Raul Reyes wasn't my employee anymore. He had other things that he was doing, you know. So I remember I had hired a kid. He was about 14, 15 years old at the time, and he was there to help me out. And this kid is Edgar Cantu. For those of y'all that know Edgar and you've seen him in my videos and you've been here at the store, he's still with me to this day. He's already 19 years old. Imagine when he started with me at 14, 15 years old. He's already 19 years old. And he was there. He learned it. I would take him fishing. He learned fishing, and he learned it, and he learned the store. To this day, you can come here and he will advise you on what to buy and what not to buy, and the proper fishing gear for the type of fishing you're doing. So a big shout out to Edgar Cantu for always having my back and having the store on lockdown since day one, as a matter of fact. So the store grew, and it was an amazing thing, man. Eventually, you know, I was still gar fishing. I was fishing and pursuing my career, and it was amazing. It was amazing, everything that we were doing at the time. So I'm gonna take a quick break, and I'm gonna come back and tell you what happened next, because I'm trying to wrap up these episodes, because we want to continue on the fun parts and the fun stuff to the podcast. So I'll be taking a break, and I'll be right back with you all. Thank you. All right, everybody. So welcome back, and let's continue the episode. Season 1, episode 3, how I started gar fishing. So before my break, I was talking about how I started my first storefront, and it was successful because we were getting a lot of clientele and meeting a lot of great people. But throughout this time, I was still going fishing. I was still doing YouTube videos. My YouTube videos were getting better. I remember I had gotten another sponsor, a good friend of mine that I've known for many, many years, Mr. Rene A. Flores. He's a local attorney and one of the best, if not the best, here in the Rio Grande Valley. And he believed in me, and he told me, Mark, I believe in you, and I'm here to have your back. I remember the first sponsorship that Rene did for me, it was a GoPro. And that's what helped me make my YouTube videos a lot better. And Rene didn't hesitate. He's like, Mark, here's a GoPro, go do your videos. And I'm here to have your back. So Rene, he had my back. He sponsored me. I was doing a little bit better videos. It was still a little low budget films, but it was better than a cell phone, right? Los Canaleros was growing. We had done tournaments throughout the years. Even before I opened the store, I forgot to mention that we're doing community tournaments for Los Canaleros del 956. We're doing freshwater alligator gar fishing tournaments for the adults and the kids. And Rene was already sponsoring them, you know, because I had sponsors for those tournaments within those times, and Rene was always there till this day. Rene still is one of our sponsors for tournaments and all that. I'm sure he would never say no if we have another event and I go ask him. You know, he still has my back. So I had other sponsors within my fishing journey. I also had another sponsor, Nancy Salas, RGV trucking permits out of Palm Butte, Texas. A big shout out to Nancy Salas for always having my back, as well as Rene, and much love to them both. And I had other sponsors as well. So Rene believed in me a lot, and I had this small storefront. I had already kind of established the business a little bit, and at one point I was thinking of maybe getting a business partner, and Rene was ready at the time, and he was interested, but I didn't want to propose anything to Rene until I had some good backup. You know, I wasn't ready to take on a business partner until I really had something to show for it. So one time I did, you know, we had a meeting, and I told Rene, would you want to be my business partner? And he agreed. And that's when I went to the bigger storefront. So Rene agreed to be my business partner, and a big shout out to Mr. Flores. And I think I should mention this in my story because he helped me. He helped me a tons and tons on this, in a way that he helped me make the business more professional. So from that little storefront that I first opened, I moved on to a bigger storefront. In the transition, Rene and I became business partners. The business became more professional. You know, we had a lot more stuff, more professionalized, and everything was a lot more organized in the business. And he helped form the business to that next level. And yeah, we moved into a bigger store. And the store was just growing. The little store was too small, so we outgrew it. We went to the next store. Rene was here. He was my fishing partner. It'd be good if he was my fishing partner. He was my business partner. And LCD 956 Bait and Tackle was growing, and it was becoming a more professional business. You know, we made it into an LLC, and it was amazing. More clients, more people. Los Canaleros was growing. My YouTube channel was growing. And I remember at that time I had bought a boat. I bought a $5,000 boat. I had bought a $5,000 boat just before the transition from the small store to the bigger store. I had bought a $5,000 boat. It lasted me 3 fishing trips, and the motor gave out. It was a piece of junk. The motor gave out, and my boat was parked for almost a whole year. But I still had the store. I was still making videos, and at that time I needed a new motor. And now I'm going back to the bigger store where I had my business partner. And at that time I needed a motor, and I was trying to see who would be able to help me co-sign for this motor, because my credit wasn't good enough for a fishing boat motor. You know, it's considered a luxury. and nobody was willing to help me co-sign that motor. And I didn't want to go to my spouse, although she has the best credit. I didn't want to go to her because she had just gotten a brand new truck, and I didn't want to interfere with that stuff. So I had nobody else. Until Rene offered to co-sign the motor. He's like, Mark, send me the paperwork. Let me fill it out. Go and pick up your motor. Oh man. So much love to Rene, man. Much love to Rene. So he co-signed for me. We're business partners. He's like, it's just gonna help the channel out, you know. So it was a win-win. So here I go, pick up my new motor. I get it installed in this boat. The motor to this day is a champ. And at that time, remember, I was still doing fishing videos. So I discovered a new place to fish with my boat. I remember Rick Diaz and I, one time we traveled up north to a lake here in Texas, about a couple hours from our hometown, and we discovered this amazing lake. And it was amazing because it was my new fishing grounds for alligator gar fishing. That lake was infested, and I told him, you know what, Rick, this is it. I'm gonna start doing guides here. I'm gonna start doing videos here. And I did. Eventually I put a video on my YouTube channel that just blew up. It was a gar video, and it just blew up, and my subscribers went up. And when I say went up, my subscribers went up. My subscribers went up to 100,000 subscribers. I was already monetized. I didn't mention this, but I was already monetized when I had my first 1,000 subscribers, and I got my monetization by YouTube. But then when I did this video, the channel blew up. And at that time, Rene had already sponsored me another camera, another GoPro, and that's the GoPro that we used for this video. And I remember when I did this video, I was trying to remake an old video that I made with my first GoPro that Rene had sponsored me. That video had gotten maybe about 300K views, and that was big for me. I'm like, wow, 300,000 views, that's amazing. For me, that was a lot. It is a lot to this day. Not too many YouTubers can say they're getting 300K in a video. So as I was remembering that video, at that time, I told my employee, that was one of my employees, another one of my employees as well. He was with me. I told him, his name's Andrew. A big shout out to Andrew. I told him, Andrew, we're gonna remake this video, and it's gonna blow up. And there he was. He was recording me making this guard video. And it was a lot better because now I have somebody recording me a lot better. We got a better camera, 4K, and that's exactly what happened. It blew up. That video blew up. I got over 100K subscribers, and that's when I got this from YouTube. I got my 100,000 subscriber YouTube plaque, and it was a big accomplishment for me. And that video blew up, and I started getting some pretty good, decent checks from YouTube. And believe it or not, before the year was over with my new motor, I went and I paid it off. I paid it off at Ron Hoover. That's where I got in the motor. Big shout out to Ron Hoover out there in Donna. Another one of my future sponsors after this, right? Big shout out to Dustin and everybody out there at Ron Hoover. So yeah, me and Rene had some money in the savings from YouTube, from the sales at the store. We had some pretty good savings, and I told Rene, should we go give a good payment? And then we decided, we're like, you know what, let's just pay it off. And we did. We had enough money to go pay off that motor in less than a year. We had it financed for about 5 years, but our game plan was always like, let's try to pay it off before time. fortunately we did. We paid it off with less than a year, and there we go. I didn't owe no money on no boat, I didn't owe no money on a motor. You know, I had a pretty strong boat that was doing the job. We were doing guard trips, videos. I was running the store. I was very occupied at that time, and I'm probably more occupied now. But that's what happened. You know, the business just kept on growing, and my YouTube kept on growing. The guard trips were growing. People were booking me. A lot of people were booking me for guard trips. I wasn't the cheapest in the business, but people wanted to fish with Mark Villareal. And you can find all those videos on Los Canaleros del 956 on YouTube. You can find all those videos of most of my clients. I probably have 90% of my videos of my clients on YouTube. And that's what was happening around that time. So what happens next with my gar fishing journey, right? How I started gar fishing. So eventually that store where I was at was getting small again. It was getting small. I go and I set a meeting with Rene. I'm like, Rene, we need a bigger store, man. We need to move out of this place. It's getting small and I just need more space. Rene's like, yeah, I agree with you. So what we did is we moved. We moved to a bigger store, and that's where I'm at now. That's where I'm filming here, and we're in my office. We made it into a studio, but behind my office is the actual storefront. So we moved to an even bigger store, and this is where we're at now. It's just amazing how, you know, we started behind my mom's house, and I say we because, you know, I don't like to just say me, because throughout this journey, a lot of people were part of it. My employees, my supporters, my customers, my family. That's what I mean by we when I say we. My business partner, my team, everything's included in we, because yeah, I worked my ass off, but at the same time I had people helping me, you know. They were there, and they're still there. So the business kept on going. It grew. We got into the bigger store. I remember I started taking some nice fishing trips. I went, my first big fishing trip was in Panama to Los Buzos Fishing Resort, and you can find that on YouTube at Los Canaleros 956. I went to Panama. I told Rene, I want to go to Panama. I want to shoot some good videos out there. I just want to learn more out there and experience other types of fishing and just grow my knowledge on fishing, not just here locally, but in other places. He's like, Mark, do it. And he didn't have to tell me 2 times. Here I was booking a trip to Los Buzos. I booked it by myself. I went by myself to Panama. I had never left the country other than Mexico, but I was brave enough to do it, and I was excited, and I did it. I went to Los Buzos Resort out there in Panama. It was amazing. It was a 5-day all-inclusive kayak offshore fishing trip. It was a blast. I recommend you all watch those videos on YouTube and see the experience that I had. So after that, I had another fishing trip. I went to Florida. One time I came back and I told my employee Andrew, I'm like, man, a client of mine showed me some piers out there that you can see some giant snook in Florida. You can literally see them from the pier. And I saw the pictures he showed me, and I told Andrew, before school starts, do you want to go? I need you to help me drive over there and help me film. He didn't hesitate. He's like, let's do it. So me and Andrew took this road trip all the way to Florida. We started at Sebastian Inlet. From Sebastian Inlet, we went to Juno Pier. From Juno Pier, we went to other piers before you get to Miami. Then we went to the Florida Keys. We almost made it to Key West, but we didn't because we had some issues with my car. Not that my car messed up, but we had some issues with the key that it just kind of discouraged the trip. So we went back from the Keys back towards Miami, and we did this all within 5 to 6 days or more. And that's also on YouTube if you want to check that out. So I got experience in Panama, then I went to Florida, and then I come back, and a couple of months later, my friend Joe Montemayor is like, Mark, we're doing a tuna fishing trip out of Venice, Louisiana. I'm like, really, Joe? He's like, yeah, have you never been to Venice? It is amazing. He showed me pictures. He got me hooked. And I'm like, I'll go. Count me in. So here I go to Venice, Louisiana, and I fish the fishing capital of the world, or at least they claim. And we caught a 95-pound wahoo. We caught a big tuna, and it was about 4 or 5 of us. I remember Leo was the one that he organizes these trips on a yearly basis. A big shout out to Leo. And I got to experience tuna fishing in Venice, Louisiana. And I almost had my first and only tuna, my yellowfin tuna. I almost had my first and only yellowfin tuna, and it was a monster. I was fighting this fish for 45 minutes. I had the harness on, the fighting harness, the belt. You know, I was fighting it with this 50 wide. I think it was an international, if I'm not mistaken. If not, it was a Shimano. But I was fighting this tuna for over 45 minutes. We weren't sure if it was a tuna or not, but when we got to see the color of it, it was a tuna, and it was big. What happened to my tuna? As soon as we saw the color, we started seeing 2 big fish chasing it, and those big fish were sharks. 2 big sharks were chasing my tuna, and they just completely took my tuna within seconds, and it sucked. To this day, that is the reason why I hate shark fishing, and that's something I wanted to share with y'all. You can't invite me shark fishing. There was a time that I was all into it, hyped up about shark fishing. I had my shark fishing rods, my reels, my kayaks, you know, deploying baits. There was a time that I was doing that. You know, I was all hyped up, and it was something that I liked, and I did catch a couple sharks back in my day. But after I experienced yellowfin tuna fishing in Venice, Louisiana, and after I got sharked for potentially one of the biggest fish that I could have ever caught, and it was a tuna, a biggest pelagic fish that I could have ever caught. I hate sharks, so I'm sorry. You probably won't see me shark fishing, but you never say never, right? Because this is fishing. This is fishing. It's part of me, so you never know. You never know. I'll probably shark fish one day, but until now, I don't like shark fishing. My respects to everybody that does, though. I know it's big and it's something that people enjoy doing. My respects, my hats off to you that you can fish these giant fish and be there forever fighting them and just releasing them. I love to catch fish that I can enjoy to eat, no matter if it's a small tilapia in the canal or if it's a big yellowfin tuna. I love to eat fish, and I'm not a big fan of shark. I've eaten it. It's okay, but it's not probably the fish that I would prefer eating. So yeah, you know, I traveled to Panama, I traveled to Florida, Venice, Louisiana, and a lot of these fishing trips helped me, and it educated me with different methods to bring back to my store and share with my customers. So now I'm not your ideal tackle store where I can just recommend the local fishing, the local fishing, like fishing in the bay for reds and trout, or just gar fishing. You know, now I can kind of guide people for offshore fishing, for jigging, trolling, you know, other types of fishing other than what everybody mostly does here. Because it's only a handful of people here in my local community that do offshore fishing. And when I say offshore fishing, I'm not talking about putting a single drop leader Carolina rig and catching a snapper. I'm talking about trolling for marlin, wahoo. I'm talking about jigging for all types of species. I got so into jigging when I went to Panama. I love it. It's one of my favorite and most things to do when it comes to fishing is jigging. It's amazing. If you haven't experienced jigging, oh man, you have been warned. You will get hooked. I can never pass on an opportunity to go jigging. If they told me, Mark, we're gonna go do one type of fishing, and what one type of fishing only, what would you like? I'm probably gonna say jigging. I want to throw a metal jig down there. I want to jig fish, and that's how I want to fish if it's only one type of fishing. So I wanted to mention that because, like I said, I got to experience fishing not only locally but other parts of the world. Panama, Venice, Louisiana, Florida. The east coast of Florida is beautiful, and I want to. One day I'm going back. Another place I got to travel to is Oaxaca, Mexico. I've always wanted to fish Mexico, and one of the places I got to fish is Oaxaca. Big shout out to Villareal, a good friend of mine out there that set me up with a good guide, and we had an amazing trip. You can see everything on YouTube. You already know what to look up, what to search, what channel. So yeah, so I'm here at the store. I'm getting more fishing knowledge and being able to offer more services to our customers. So here at LCD 956 Bait and Tackle, we offer custom rods, we offer bait, we offer saltwater, freshwater fishing trips. We make leaders of all kinds now. It's not just gar fishing, it's not just reds. We have carp leaders, we have sheepshead leaders, we have snapper leaders, drop leaders, Carolinas. We have, of course, alligator gar leaders, alligator gar floats. We have popping corks. We have catfish leaders, and they're all made here at LCD 956 Bait and Tackle Shop. And we're not a store, we're a shop. Why? Because we work here. We manufacture, we do rod and reel repair, so it's a shop. And not too many places can say that they're a shop. If they're not doing this, they're not a shop. If they're not fixing reels, fixing rods, making leaders, they can consider themselves a fishing shop. And it's not the biggest store, but trust me, if we don't have it, you don't need it. So the store, the store's been doing good, and I met a lot of great people. Los Canaleros have been growing. Eventually, my partnership with Mr. Flores came to an end. I decided to buy him out because the fishing store, the fishing tackle business, I'm gonna say it's not the best business in the world. That's why we offer so many services. Because if it was just for selling fishing tackle, I probably wouldn't have been here talking to y'all right now. This consists of everything from the YouTube, from the custom rods to the fishing trips, from all the services that we provide here. So I decided to buy Mr. Flores out. I had a little bit of money in my savings, and I didn't think I was ever going to have the opportunity to do it. Maybe I was, maybe I wasn't in the future. And I went and I had a serious talk with Rene, and I told him, look bro, the business, there's times that it's not at its best, and I don't want to fail you. I don't want to go down in the business and bring you down with me. I want to risk it all by myself. If I succeed, I succeed. If I fail on my own, and I don't want to put that on you. And he told me, he's like, Mark, I don't care. I'm here for the long run. And that's how much Rene believes in me. And that's how much trust he has in me. And that's how much love there is. And my respects and my love for Mr. Flores. I decided to buy him out. He kind of at first, he told me, no, Mark, I'm here for the long run. I don't care. I'm here with you. I have your back no matter what. So I let it be. I didn't buy him out at the time, but then the store kind of started, not doing so well. I still had that savings that I was saying. I went back to Rene and I told him, I'm like, Rene, I have a little bit of money in my savings. Please take this, because I'm going all in, and if I fail or if I succeed or whatever, I don't want to do you wrong, man. Let me grow the business a lot better on my own, and maybe in the future we might have an opportunity a lot better. I want to be able to have something more to show if I ever come back and propose some type of sponsorship. or partnership, I'm sorry. And he agreed. He's like, Mark, I love you, bro. Let's go ahead and do it. You know, X amount. And that's what happened. I went and I gave him a check. And I'm back to being an independent owner. And I'm here. I'm risking it all. I went all in. I'm still here. I went all in. And that's my story. There's a lot more to it. But if I sit here and talk about everything, we're never going to finish, everybody. I just wanted to let you all know who Mark Villareal is and where he started and what it has become. We're at 150,000 members and YouTube. We are growing. We are providing more services out there for our customers. And I'm here, you know. That's my story, like I said. There's a lot more to it, but that's pretty much the basics of everything. So that being said, I invite everybody to join Los Canaleros del 956 on Facebook, because that's where it all started. I invite y'all to visit our Instagram, TikTok, as well, Los Canaleros del 956. Our podcast for the ones that are tuned in to YouTube, here on Spotify, LCD 956 Fishing HQ, because I'm still all in and I'm not finished yet. I have not even gotten started with what I want to do. I kind of rearranged the team a little bit. Edgar Cantu's still here running the store, and we have some great videos coming your way. If you haven't seen my most current videos, check them out. Big shout out to the videographer that's working with Los Canaleros del 956, JNP Productions and videography and all that good stuff, that he's been here with us. He's actually filming right now. He's filming right now. He's waving and smiling right behind the camera. So a big shout out to JNP, a big shout out to Edgar Cantu. Edgar Cantu he deserves a lot of credit in this, because he's been with me since we started with nothing, and he's still here. And one day I hope to be able to grow this business a lot more, maybe have more than one store, and be able to provide a better employment for my employees, because I want them to grow as much as the business does. That's the plan. So everybody, that's gonna be the end of season 1, episode 3, how I got started in gar fishing. And I hope you enjoyed my story. I wish I can sit here and just tell my whole story, but it's too big of a story to sit here and talk about it all. And I just went over the basics. A big shout out to my good friend and brother, Rene Flores. I love you, brother, and I hope to do great things with you in the future. A big shout out to Nancy Salas, RJV Trucking Permits. I'm not sponsored by them at this time or anymore, but a big shout out to them, because they've been through me. They've been with me through the process, and they believe in me. And to this day, I can probably go and get sponsorship, but right now I'm at a place where I'm trying to do something big with this business. And once I do, I want to hope and I hope to have them be part of it, because they've been with me through the beginning. So a big shout out to all of those. A big shout out to my family, my daughter Delilah, my lovely spouse Belinda, and my mother Norma, my brothers, my sister, everybody out there. A big shout out to everybody. Guys, do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube, Los Canaleros del 956. Come visit me at LCD 956 Bait and Tackle in McAllen, Texas. Stay tuned, because we have so much for you all. Coming up on our next episodes, I'm going to try to bring some guests here. The fun will begin. I hope you know who Mark Villareal is, and I hope I have gained your trust. Visit our Facebook page at LCD 956 Fishing HQ to see behind the scenes, interact with the community, and you can be the first one to know what's next. Everybody, much love.